and they're pissed off. They're breaking computer screens. They're doing all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, this is not sustainable. You can have a great thesis. You can do everything technically correct, and you can still lose money. A lot of times growth happens when you step back, when you take a loss, when you invest in that loss. Most people think financial freedom has to come before time freedom, but it's actually the other way around.
Credentials, degrees, whatever, like, are we technically using those things now? No. Did they give us a platform to work from, to be here doing this thing that serves way more people at a much higher value? Yes.
We can't keep postponing and dreaming. There has to be a decision, a point where you say, I'm committed to doing this.
So let's start, if you would. Let's just dive right into your story. I understand, like, you started out in the, was it technically corporate? At least the professional world, seeking the traditional version of success. So let's kind of dive back into that former version of you and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, the first foray into real work I had was I was a futures and derivatives trader in Chicago. So I was working in finance. I was running a P&L and making, actual bets on the market. So I was trading different products, S&P 500 futures, stocks. I was trading natural gas, oil, all sorts of things, anything that moved fast. And as a 20-year-old, 22-year-old college grad getting their first job, I mean, it was all about, like, where's the money and how do I take as much risk as possible? So I started there. And what I realized really quickly is it's so intense and it's so stressful because you are literally eating what you kill, right? It is, I am trying to buy an asset at a lower price and sell it at a higher price, minute by minute, second by second. And I am taking swings in my P&L, on a daily basis that are like more than teachers' salaries that they earn in an entire year. And so one of the other things you learn really, really quickly is that you can have a great thesis, you can do everything technically correct, and you can still lose money. And so I learned really, really early how to grapple with that uncertainty and that chaos. And, I woke up one day at 26 years old and had a progression, but I woke up and I ended up quitting the next day because I looked forward and I looked at people who were sitting in chairs next to me at 40 years old, and they're pissed off. They're breaking computer screens. They're doing all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, this is not sustainable for me. It took me having my own health concerns at this time to sort of push me to that edge. But I was on the path of whatever you commit to, you have to do. And all progress kind of has to be very steady and up and to the right, on a graph. And I ended up reading a chapter of a book called, the book is called The Art of Learning. And the chapter is called Investment in Loss. And reading that chapter just kind of broke my perspective on how I was grinding and how I was putting myself at risk. And it really gave me permission to say, no, actually, a lot of times growth happens when you step back, when you take a loss, when you invest in that loss. And it just like gave me the permission to walk in and be like, this is not my future anymore. I was making great money, especially for a young person, but like, this is not my future. And I just quit. And so that was what I call my first break moment, where I really grappled with what is success and like, what are the options, at least in a work capacity, for me to realize my version of success. What is even a version of success if it's not completely, based in money? And so that really led my journey of trying a whole bunch of different things, and kind of coming to the point where I am now, leading and coaching other trapped corporate people who want to build a life of freedom, want to build their own businesses. And it really is rooted in not just the tactics, but the mental and emotional and identity growth that you have to go through in order to make some of these changes.
Mm. So at 26, are you quit that job and you walk away? Were you engaged, married, kids yet? Like, what was the situation like on that side?
Gr- That's a great question. So I had at that point in time, I actually was married. I'm trying to think back. I was married to my high school sweetheart. We had a really long history between high school and there, but we had always stayed together. She was in medical school at the time. We didn't have any kids. Uh, yeah, and I just quit cold turkey, and I was like, hey, I don't know what is going to happen next for me. But I got to get out of this situation. And, again, we were young, didn't have kids. We did have a house, but we were both at points in our careers or in our young lives where we were able to do that. And
Right.
we were able to survive on what we had, and gave me a breath and opportunity to figure that out. And that is absolutely not the case for the career transitions I've made and for people who I help when you're in your late 30s, 40s, and even 50s, when you have real responsibilities, kids, family, to take care of. It's a whole different set. Changing is a whole different set of kind of problems, if you will, that require very tactical steps in order to make those transitions in a very risk managed way.
Yeah. Which is a great point, and I think that's one of the things that, like, holds a lot of people back, is they see the risk associated with that, or at least the fear of, "Hey, I have a mortgage to pay, I've got, kids in school," or whatever it is. You've got expenses. So, like, at 30, 40 years old, it's not as easy to just be willing to say, "Hey, I quit. I'm going to bet on myself at this point." I think that keeps a lot of people trapped in, right, I don't love this job. I hate it. It's grinding my soul, but I'm going to keep doing it because I'm afraid of, hey, how do I take that next step? Right. So, how do you juggle that risk or put that risk in perspective? Is it just a matter of having that process in place? Like, what is your perspective there for that person on encouraging them that there is a right way to do it?
Yeah, and so fast forwarding in my journey, I in between trading and what I do now, I had a couple of other fits and starts in the career world. But in 2018, I was in a corporate job. I had 3 kids. I had a mortgage, wife, family, all of that stuff. And I was in a corporate job. We were doing corporate innovation for a large Fortune 500 insurance company. And to the outside world, it was the best place to work in the company. We were trying to build new products and services for the insurance company, non-insurance products. We were doing great, cool things, customer research, working with startups, all of this stuff. But that bureaucracy was just so soul crushing of like, okay, now we have a good idea, and grinding to a halt as we go through the process of like getting it approved and all of that. And I was thinking to myself at the time, looking at my 3 kids who were all under 7, and I'm like, I can't start over again. How do I figure this out? And what I've come to realize and what I've come to teach is the first thing that has to happen is we have to be able to, if we want to not quit cold turkey, not rage quit, not put ourselves in that very risky spot, um, we have to be able to create space, and we have to be able to create time in our current lives as they exist today. And we don't, for most of us, people like you and I, we don't want to take that from our family, right? That's another misnomer, right? You hear all the hustle culture stuff of nights and weekends and build on the side and all of that. And it's like, nobody wants to do that if you're committed to your family and you want to have great experiences with them. So I said, all right, I need to figure this all out. So what I did was deconstructed and said, here's my workday. I need to stop committing to all of this fake work, right? Like the showing up to meetings where you're one of 14. It still blows my mind that in corporate you can have like 14, 15, 20 person meetings. But like stop showing up to these meetings where I don't have any perspective or value in the meeting. Stop doing these glad handing things like to show face to get a promotion. Like that isn't my path. So if I can cut a bunch of that stuff out and I can control my communications and thoughtfully talk to my team about what I'm trying to do and why I'm pushing back. I call it make no a win-win. Like present it in the organizational context. Like I'm not showing up to this meeting just to be difficult. It's like there's a better use of my time. So that's step number one is like dis- how do we insulate ourselves from the distraction work? How do we just focus on the 2 to 3 things that drive our performance at work and really matter to our evaluations so that we keep that paycheck flowing? But we have so much more space and capacity to breathe, and we feel more in control of our own time, which is the only resource we were like actually born with. Like our time is ours. And so I call that idea time sovereignty. And most people think financial freedom has to come before time freedom, but it's actually the other way around. You have to have time freedom first before you can invest that time into building anything actually meaningful. And what happens is when you do this correctly, you start to feel you have more agency at work already. You start to show up differently, and you start to present yourself as more valuable, even if you're not physically present there as much. It's a really interesting kind of dichotomy. And so a lot of people, when they implement these things, just start to feel better, like automatically, just because they have more agency in control of whatever chaos is happening and whatever they hate about their job currently. So that's kind of like step number one.
So can we pause there for a second?
Yeah.
Because while I do agree with the majority of that, I think that there is a part of that that I want to address is for the people who may not have the quote unquote freedom to say no to the meeting, or maybe their 9 to 5 isn't as forgiving for them to make their own hours or do whatever they got to do. They're maybe in a little bit more structured of a thing where they have to physically be present for that time and they can't maybe find the time during that 8-hour span. I think that there is still an option for them to find that time outside, right? So it's beyond the 5 p.m. hour, if we're going to go with the standard hours here, where it doesn't necessarily take away from your family, right? And that's, I think, being intentional with your time. So at least from my perspective, you see a lot of people who, maybe while they're in the middle of playing with their kid, they'll be on their phone, scrolling social media or checking an email or something else. And they're trying to be 2 different places at the same time. Where I think it's more like, hey, when you're with your family, be with your family. And, if you can carve out that half an hour a day, cool. You can start working on yourself and building that margin into your schedule from 8:30 to 9 p.m. But if from 5 p.m. till 8:30, you were locked in and focused on yourself, your family, the things you wanted to do, then you're not in that spot where like you're not present, you're not feeling that joy. And I think that, for someone who maybe is locked into that 9 to 5 where they're not going to have as much freedom to find margin in the daytime, that might be the approach that I would take. So I kind of would like your perspective on that part of it.
100% agree. And I did this as well in the time back when I was building out of corporate. 1,000%. I totally agree. I would just I would push people and challenge people on the assumption that they just say, well, I can't do that, because every single person that I work with tells me that exact same thing. So I think there's margin in both areas. And with the family piece, honesty and openness with your partner and with your kids, even on what you are trying to do and why, matters big time. So I think there's this like ability that modern work has sort of switched off for most of us, which is this ability to oscillate between real focus and relaxation or presence. So, that gets to what you were kind of talking about, like this idea that you're playing with your kids and your 2-year-old is on the ground, and you're also doing one of these, like in scrolling Instagram or checking an email. Like that is not how we are set up to actually be as human beings. And what that does when you're doing all of that, it's a distraction, and it's actually impeding your ability to kind of cycle through this process of focus and of presence. And so a lot of the identity type work that we have to do and the mindset type work that we have to do is condition ourselves to be able to toggle those switches, because there's no such thing as like work life balance, in my opinion. There is, like, balance implies 50% across the board, and I'm kind of like whack-a-moling everything and checking to make sure things are balanced. Like it's more of a switch. It's like a teeter totter where, okay, I go full bore on this and focused on for a specific period of time, and then I'm able to switch back and reset. And I mean that is just like, again, I speak and work with people who are family first people. They want to be family first people. Part of what they come to me for is I want the capacity to be present at home, but I'm also dealing with all of this mental baggage around my job and what to do. And I don't know how to start, and all of these questions that are bleeding over into that family side. So that's a long winded answer to say, like, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. And I think that there's a part of it too that comes from like the ability to actually do the thing you said you're going to do, which I know is a difficult thing for a lot of people who are maybe just starting out and they're not really strong in their identity and who they are. But when you say to your kid, hey, dad has a work emergency, I need half an hour, they understand that this is not a normal thing. You don't do this every day. And when you say half an hour, sure, maybe you mean 35 minutes. I get it. But like you do the thing you say you're going to do, and then you come back and you're locked in. And, for a lot of people, it's like, oh, hey, dad has to do something real quick. Next thing you know, it's an hour later and you're still just putzing on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Your family can see through that BS, and so can you. And I think that's where a lot of that self-confidence issues come from, is like keeping the promises you make to yourself.
Hmm.
And for people on this journey, I think there's a tremendous amount of it when you just start out, at least again, from my perspective, I want to hear yours. When you start out on this, you're really trying to break free from that like feeling of being stuck, right? Because I think a lot of people who are in this phase have gone through so much time living someone else's definition and saying yes to someone else's priorities. They just don't know how to prioritize themselves, or it feels selfish.
Yeah, exactly. So what we talk about all the time is kind of a 3-step cyclical process. I call it break, become, build. And the break phase, what you're getting at is we have to be able to smash the perspectives that we hold today that are governing our default behaviors around time, around presence, around how to build, around who we are, what identity corporate has given us, and is that true and is it not? And so that's like breaking down, deconstructing what is governing your behavior today. Because if we don't fix that behavior today, inertia takes over, and you're going to be in the same place in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. And so that's what that piece is all about. And part of that is this time component of how do I look at how normal business operates in my company? What are the norms and assumptions and unspoken rules that are governing that I can push back against? Again, one piece of it, but the identity part is a massive piece as well. Become. So once you are able to deconstruct that, become is about how do you want to operate? Who do you need to be? What is that future vision of yourself? Those goals, what success is, just that vision of the life that you want to live. And how do we program that person into your behaviors today? So it might be, all right, I want to build a business. Okay, great. Do you wake up and say, I'm a founder? Do you wake up and say, I have a process and a plan to execute the first step instead of letting your corporate brain take over and try to plan 20 steps. So that's become, and then build is once you have that foundation, who you want to become, what you want to do, what value you have, what your advantages are today, all of the power that that you can create, then we can go build a vehicle to take you there. But you have to, like, again, especially for corporate people. Um, I'm not talking about millennials. I'm not talking about people who are just trying to build first and are already out there trying to be entrepreneurs. If you want to make this transition, these are the three phases that have to happen. And most people want to build right away. And we have to go through these other processes first.
Yeah. Do you think a part of that is because most people associate breaking with a bad thing? I think the concept of something breaking or being broken
Yeah.
tends to give a very negative connotation. Where to me, it's like, hey, the best part of a breakthrough is the original break. Like it's the thing that
Yeah.
allows you to step forward.
Yeah. So this is so interesting because I use the word break all the time. My YouTube channel is called Breaking Work. My newsletter is called Breaking Work. And I use this, I said my first break moment earlier, right? I talk about break moments as like these epiphanies or breakthroughs. And you're totally right. So like from a marketing perspective, as I've built the business, what's been really interesting is there is a negative connotation. Um, but the way that we have to think about it is like, for you in this situation, work isn't working for you right now. It's just not. It already is broken. So, like, we can't keep doing something that is broken. We have to figure out why it's broken. And then we have to build. And so all of my coaches and people who mentor me from a business side and marketing side, they're like, you got to ditch this breaking work thing. And I'm like, I don't care. This is part of me. We're going to go with this language. But you're absolutely right. Like, nobody wants to feel like I'm throwing it all away. They want to be able to leverage what they have currently and feel like they're making progress, right? Going back to that analogy of the up and to the right progress curve. Very few are willing to say, like, I need to start over completely.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of the phrase, the longer you spend on the wrong train, the more expensive the return ticket is. And I feel like for
100%.
a lot of people, they spend years at work living in a different identity, just on the wrong train in their life because it feels like, well, I've gone this far, I might as well just keep going, right? That sunk cost fallacy.
100%.
And I think it's more the encouragement that like you could make today the day you decide to get off that train. Like it could happen at any point in time. And the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be. But like the freedom on the other side of that, and I think you and I are examples of this, which I think is really important for people to have a picture of possibility to understand like, yes, it's possible. Here's two people who've done it and they're willing to walk with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you make the decision, yeah, it's going to be a little difficult. It's going to be uncomfortable. I get it. But the result on the other side of that is 100,000 times better than anything that you think you're suffering through right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I use the analogy of a river. Like, if you think about the Grand Canyon was formed essentially by like a river over, whatever it was, hundreds of thousands or millions of years or whatever it was. Like, that river keeps carving the same groove deeper and deeper and deeper until you end up swimming in the same water, but at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, you're like, how do I get out? I got to climb a 1,000-foot wall. That's exactly like the train, very, very much like the train analogy. And so the quicker you can notice and recognize that you are misaligned, the quicker and faster and easier it becomes to make a real pivot out. But to your last point, there has to be a decision. We can't keep thinking about it. We can't keep postponing and dreaming and scrolling Instagram for inspiration. There has to be a decision, a point where you sort of say, I'm committed to doing this. Now, there are risk managed ways to do that. That doesn't mean quit your job, but there has to be an identity shift and there has to be a commitment to yourself, to your point, that you're going to start this process. I can't do that for you. Jim can't do that for you. you have to come to a point where you say, this is worth me investing my time and energy on earth in order to pursue.
Mm. Now, what about the person who has their identity tied in their work? Because I'm sure you've seen that plenty of
Oh
times. Like
yeah.
they don't exist outside of what they do. I think for a lot of people, that also makes it scary because if they stop doing that job, they cease to exist.
Yes. See it all the time. And it's really interesting, and it can be hard work, but it's also the process is simple at the end of the day. You mentioned the sunk cost fallacy. So one of the things that I talk to my very bright, well-educated, high-performing corporate people is I say, I have an MBA. I don't ever talk about it, but I have an MBA. And the only thing that I really remember from my MBA is this sunk cost fallacy. And we have to be able to get people to understand what that is and that it's not a binary decision. Your identity and what got you the label you put on yourself, first and foremost, of I am this, and if that doesn't exist, therefore I don't exist. You've put that on yourself. So the process that we use, or what we try to do, is I, I run people through a process that I call advantage mapping. And what this is designed to do is to get you to think greater and broader, not about your skill set and not about the career capital that you've necessarily acquired, but your journey through corporate has given you a whole bunch of abilities. It may be sales, like maybe you're the sales guy and you're super good at sales, but you've also acquired all sorts of other abilities to influence people, to write, to create, whatever it may be. And so we look very broadly through the lens of advantage. Like, what is a skill? A skill is something you're good to, that you're good at, that you can do. But an advantage is a lens or an angle in which you can utilize that skill. And so we look at things like curiosity, personality, energy, um, aptitude, expertise, support. Support. What do you have? What resources do you have at your disposal? And when we do that, we break everything down. And people who have a really, really solid identity that say, I have all of these certifications, that's something that I hear all the time. I can't possibly give up those certifications. I can't take those letters off of my name on my LinkedIn profile, right? They get a sense of, oh, okay. Well, here is part of my past identity that I can use, that I can take with me, that I can leverage in the future. But then maybe there are, 3, 4, 5 things about that past identity that no longer serve me. And it's easier for people when they have that larger view to be able to let go, maybe slowly, but one by one, let go of parts of that identity and create. This is where become comes, create a new one for yourself. And this is all backed by really solid psychology, neuroscience. I just had a guy on my podcast, Dr. Richard Boytsakis, who is like 50 years research in intentional change. And he backed all of this stuff up. It's really like your own identity. No one really gave that to you. You gave it to yourself. And that means you can also give yourself a new one.
Mm, I love that. And I think, much to that same point, like how you spent years of your life working a very different job and building up a resume there. I spent a large part of my life doing a very different job, building a resume there, credentials, degrees, whatever. Like it's a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of stuff, really. And ultimately, it led us to be here. Are we
Right.
technically using those things now? No. Did they give us a platform to work from to be here doing this thing that serves way more people at a much higher value? Yes. So I feel
Yeah.
like to me, it's if you do decide to really step into who you are, who you were designed to be, all that other stuff will, eventually make room for you. It might not make sense now. You might not see the path. Like to me, I believe that all the things that are happening in your life are happening for you. And I feel like that the faith component, at least to me, is a large part of that, that you understand that there is a greater vision for you that you have to step into. So I'm curious, in your experience, what has your relationship been like with that?
With faith specifically?
Well, just the faith as far as like,
Yeah.
believing that there is a greater version for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. There's like the meta faith, right? Religion and all of those types of things, God, the world, whatever you want to label it. I grew up Catholic, so it doesn't matter to me what you label it, but there is something, there is power higher than us, and I always believed like I'm here for a reason. I'm here, and I believe in general the reason is for us to be the best version of ourselves, because that not only does good for us, it does good for everybody else around us when we are acting in our highest power. And the confusion was, I don't know what the heck that is. And I had very little belief in myself at a lot of times. And I would say I still struggle with it. But at some point you have to sort of give your hands, like throw your hands in the air and say, the only path forward is to have faith on some level, faith in myself, faith in things are happening. The world is much more dynamic than our brains can even process. So that, like, I have faith in the idea that if I can't see the path 20 steps down the road, something will open up. And if I just concentrate on the one or two things in front of me, and I feel and I know in my body that I am going in the right direction, I am striving for the right things, that I will get there.
Yeah. I like that answer because, I think, at least from what I've seen, it describes this relationship a lot of people have that they struggle with between believing in faith and understanding exactly what it is and understanding their purpose. Right. And to me, it's like the wind. If you had to describe wind to someone or convince someone that wind was real, how would you do it? It's a difficult thing. You can't physically see it. You don't really know the science behind it. But if you stand outside, you can feel it. Right. And so, I think for a lot of people to understand, hey, maybe I don't necessarily know what my purpose is, but I believe that there is one. I think that's kind of the first step is like, hey, yes, you are called, you've been designed and put on this earth for a thing. It might take you 90 years to figure out what that thing is, but if you just believe that that thing exists for you and you continue to seek it, you will wind up in the right spot. And I feel
Mhm.
like, to me at least, that unlocks a portion of it that takes the expectation of understanding exactly what it is. You don't need to understand, hey, what exactly is your purpose before you take that first step into seeking out what it is.
Yeah, I agree. And so I think, like, I always struggle with purpose, like, because I don't think you can ever. I do think it's something that can change. I almost think, like, if you want like a concrete purpose definition, I think you'll find that you have sort of these contextual purposes that are sort of time based. But if you have a vision for where you want to go, how you want to live, how your relationships want to be, how you want to impact people, that's your North Star. And if you're continuing to go in that direction and you're continuing to make concrete moves to move towards that, that's kind of the physics of change, if you will. You're moving in a direction that is very aligned. At a deep level, it is for good. I'm not talking about like, oh, I want to build a house in the mountains and I want to drive a Ferrari. It's like, how do I want to wake up every day? How do I want to work? How do I want to impact people through my work? Because let's be honest, we're spending what 75% of our waking hours or whatever the hell it is, like, at work to earn money. We might as well, like, that's a huge portion of our living time. If we can have that vision of, I'm trying to go this way, and I just keep moving forward and I keep making steps and I reevaluate, that ends up illuminating what's possible for you along the way. Like, the vision isn't the goal. It isn't at the end of your life to say, I made it to my exact vision and I checked that box. The vision is designed to, over time, all of the pathways that you have. to being impactful, to making money, to being wealthy, to having present relationships, to being just a full stack human being, whatever, however you want to define it. So what I think where I've gotten is like, I have faith 100,000% that I am going in the right direction now. And I didn't have that early on. It was more me, money, money as the metric. And now I'm like, I am totally going in the right direction. Everything's aligned. I'm teaching my kids how to operate under uncertainty. They're learning entrepreneurship. So I'm doing good for them. I'm literally saving people's lives by picking them off the floor and giving them a pathway. The middle, how it all works out, the exact mechanism, the exact business, those things are still up in the air. I don't know how it's all going to turn out, but I know that if I keep doing the things and keep iterating and keep putting myself out there, that I have way higher odds of success than I do if I keep myself small. And so that part of faith and faith in myself, that part I have 1000% hit. Like no one can shake me from that mission. And so I struggle much more tactically decisions. And I have ADHD and I know you do, and I know you had somebody else on, and that's been an interesting realization over time as well. But like my faith in that direction and my faith in the purity of why I want to go in that direction supersedes any of my limitations that are current or in sort of, that I'm grappling with now.
Yeah. And I agree 100%. I think, the thing there too is like understanding that your purpose is not this black and white thing that you just, hit the download button on and you get it and then you're good. Like I think with enough intentional work, you can go from feeling stuck at your 9 to 5 to having a 90% understanding of what your purpose is in a couple of years, maybe less, depends on how intentional you want to be. And then you may spend the next 80 years of your life getting from 90 to 99%. Like
Yeah.
that's going to keep evolving over time.
Yeah.
The more work you do, the more work you do in your purpose, you're going to start to understand, like really refine it. And I think that's really the purpose. I know it sounds weird, but the purpose is to seek the purpose, like to continue to just push yourself and go back to who you were designed to be and just continue to like use your gifts. And
Yeah.
you don't necessarily need to know what they're for. You just need to know that, hey, you've been given this gift. Go freaking share it with the world. You might not necessarily understand what it's going to do. Right? What is the butterfly effect of you showing up on this podcast today? Who's going to
Right.
hear it? I have no idea. Someone will.
Right.
There's going to be one person who's going to hear this and is going to make a decision that today was the moment they decided, hey, I'm not living this life anymore. I'm going to decide to live for myself, not in a selfish way, but like when you make yourself a priority, it allows you to show up more for other people. It gives you more to be able to show up in your work, in your family, in your life, in your community, in all the areas. And that's what you mean about, being a full stack human is like, hey, you're not just really good at bringing home a paycheck. You're a great dad, right? You're a great husband. You're great for yourself. Like all of these different areas, if you can show up and be all of them, it's tremendously possible. Might seem super far away from where you are right now, but like you don't have to go from 0 to 100 in one step. Like I think the biggest thing people need to understand is that you need to align yourself with some people, get around a coach, get around someone who can give you a picture of possibility, and just take the first step. Just decide that that's the life you want. You don't want to live this stuck life. You want to break that and move on to a better version of yourself. So, I mean, that's again my perspective, but I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah. I agree with that. And to me, it comes back to time a little bit. Like, you get to a point around 40, right? The midlife crisis where you realize like time's actually running out. I don't have it all. It's not going to continue forever. And I think those are the moments where if you embrace those moments instead of try to insulate yourself from them, and you sit with what that means for you and what those feelings are, um, that is when big breakthroughs can happen. And I went through this easily. And I just came out saying like, I, I don't know exactly what I want, but I know what I don't want. And that's a good starting point for a lot of people. And I said, I don't want to travel all the time for work. I don't want to raise capital. I don't want to build a gigantic scaled company. Like I want to surround myself with 5 or 6 people in my business that I really care about, that they're getting growth. I want to deeply impact human beings. I want to create. That was a big part of it. Like, I want to create my own products, services, books, writing, all of that stuff. I want to create and put my point of view out in the world. If that hits, great. If it doesn't, great, but I still feel good about it. Um, and I just started moving you know, in that direction. And momentum is a crazy thing. Momentum is crazy in fitness and health, right? It's so painful to think about working out for the first time or eating healthy for the first time, but like after a couple weeks, you know, you think about the runner's high, like it's like, oh my God, I got to go do that. I need, or I get to go do that, right? I'm excited to actually get in the gym and see my progress. And it's the same thing here. It's different. It's not as measurable, like with the mental and emotional breakthroughs that you make and the personal growth stuff. But there are ways that you can try to measure that stuff, and see progress and keep that momentum going. Like life is a momentum game, but you have to make a decision that you're going to veer off. The default path is taking you one way, and you can clearly see what that means for you. You have to take, even if it's a small step, you have to make a commitment to yourself, keep that commitment to yourself and say, this is worth trying.
Mm, I love that. Is that is that the first step? Like for someone listening today who hears this conversation and decides they don't want to live that stuck life anymore. They want to really understand, hey, I can take control of my life and design it how I want. Is that the first step for them to just make that decision? Where do they go from here?
Yeah. Yes. Um, you have to make that decision, and you have to think about it as this is worth it no matter what. Like, I think people get caught up in trying to do pros and cons or trying to say, like, trying to guarantee an outcome. Uh, I see that a lot from very risk averse people, but it's a commitment to yourself, like getting in shape, like whatever. I want to go in this direction. I don't know. And be able to have that faith and accept that I don't know exactly where this is gonna take. But I think if you're in corporate and you're struggling with this, the next step is, or I would say the first thing that you have to start to really pick apart if you're going to start exploring like the default and why things, or what pieces of my life are keeping me on that default path versus what I need to change to get on a different path. It does come down to time, in our relationship to time. And like you said, it could be structurally at home, it, or it could be, how do I design my workday to have more time freedom for myself so that I can go invest it there. To me, commitment, and then understanding how you can change and how you can create capacity for yourself to go deep, to do, like people say, I don't have time to even, you know, journal or introspect, or like, how do I even do that? It's 5 minutes in between meetings. All right, let's solve that problem first. Let's own our calendar a little bit more than we are. Let's carve out an hour block that's protected where I can start to answer some of those questions for myself.
Mm, I love that. I want to thank you for this conversation today because I know that there's going to be at least one person who's heard this and changes their life because of it. And had you not decided to take that step and change yours, that wouldn't be possible. So again, I just want to give you some honor for doing that and taking that risk because it was worth it. So thank you for being you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Where can we support you from here going forward?
Everything about me, I'm heavy on LinkedIn. I write a lot on LinkedIn, but everything that you need to know is at michaelgardon.com, my main website. It has links to my Substack. It has, it, uh, it has all the information you need on the program, has my book, there, which is all about time sovereignty and being left alone at work and minimizing distraction. So it's all right there. And I would love it if you guys all, if anyone wants to say hey on LinkedIn, ask me a question, connect with me, happy to do it there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you again.